Should last about 20 minutes or so. This is Liz, by the way, one of your program mentors. We've been doing a few webinars today, so that's hence the reason why I said good morning on the page earlier. But what we'll be going over today is just some information about the certification exam. Also be reviewing the exam objectives, and then followed by a Q&A. However, if you should have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to type them in the live chat. I'll get to them once the actual presentation is finished. So to start off, the QuickBooks 2012 certification exam is 50 multiple choice questions. So we say this is an analytical exam. You'll have 50 minutes to complete the test, so it's about a minute per question. You can actually flag questions for review and answer them at the end. So we recommend just kind of getting through the questions as best you can on your first try. And if you find yourself spending more than 30, 45 seconds on a question, I'd recommend skipping it and moving on to the next one. To pass the exam, you have to score 70%. So essentially, that's 35 questions you need to answer correctly. The QuickBooks certification exam is administered through a testing company called Certiport, and you'll actually be taking that at the Work to Future Assessment Lab, which I'll go over in further detail a little bit later on. So starting off with the exam objectives, we had given you a sheet in the beginning of the program that went over the exam objectives. And essentially, these exam objectives come from Intuit, so the creators of QuickBooks. And this is what will be on the exam. So essentially, what I'm going to do is just review the 10 topics, kind of give some insights on some of the objectives. And if you should have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. So starting off, the first subject is QuickBooks Setup. So this accounts for about 6% of the exam. What you'll need to know for this is what information is required before you actually set up a QuickBooks file. So essentially, when creating a company through Express Start, you'll need to know the basic company information and know general operations within the company as well. The second objective is how to start a new company data file in QuickBooks. So this is through the Easy Step interview. In addition, you'll have to understand how to keep the lists and preferences from an old file while removing old transactions, how to customize the home page, and also how to set up lists. Now, when going over these objectives, you'll see the wording how to. Essentially, in this certification exam, as I said, it's analytical and it's multiple choice. So you don't actually see the QuickBooks application. Therefore, when it says how to, it's actually asking you how to navigate throughout the QuickBooks program without actually looking at it. So what I would recommend for these particular objectives, when it says how to, refer to the manual, either in day 1 manual or day 2 manual, which you can find in the Mastering QuickBooks Level 1 course, because I thought, for myself personally, I took this training and I took the exam, and when studying for the exam, I found it extremely helpful to refer back to the manual because it was kind of nice wording and layout of how they describe how to do certain operations within QuickBooks. So moving on to the second subject, which is QuickBooks Utilities and General Product Knowledge. So this accounts for about 10%. And once again, you have the how to navigate or move around QuickBooks. So this is using the home page, the menu, and the icon bar. Essentially, there's a lot of ways to do different tasks within QuickBooks. However, for the certification exam, it's called a certification exam for a reason. They're testing you on a particular way of how they want you to answer the question, which is essentially using the tabs on the top of, the file tabs, which we gave you a document with these tabs as well. So I'd recommend, in addition to using the day 1, day 2 manuals, look at this kind of document that we gave you with the different menus and the tabs, so you can understand, truly how to navigate throughout QuickBooks without actually seeing or using the product. So you'll need to know that. In addition, know how to back up and restore a data file. So you would obviously just go to File and then Open or Restore Company. Also know how to use QuickBooks in a single user or multi-user mode. In addition, know how to password protect QuickBooks. So you can do this by going to Company and then Set Up Users. And then also know how and why to use preferences. The third subject is list management. And this is pretty straightforward. You need to just know how to manage the list. So it depends on whether it's customers, vendors, items. You need to know how to add new entries, delete entries, edit entries, and merge entries. So to merge entries, what I found helpful in the manual was page 30 to 32. Essentially, it's important to remember that you need to rename the list entry when you're actually merging the entries. I remember that was a question that was asked on both practice and my actual exam. The fourth subject is items. So for this accounts for 8% of the exam. What you'll need to know is the different types of items and when to use each. So I found this in Chapter 5, page 48 of the manual. In addition, you'll need to know how to use items for different types of scenarios. So you need to know, products for a specified price, services for a specified price, unique products or services that have different prices for each sale, and one service or product. So essentially, you'll need to know the difference between inventory parts, non-inventory parts, and inventory examples. To get a better grasp on this, you can go to pages 40 through 48 in Day 1 manual. Okay, now moving on to the fifth subject, which is sales. So sales is about 10% of the exam as well. So essentially what you'll need to know for this is the 5 ways on how to record sales. So that includes invoicing, sales receipts, statement charges, Excel, and deposits. So what you'll need to know, again, is how to navigate and use the Customer Center, how to complete the workflow, so that includes, from making the sale all the way to making the deposit. In addition, you'll need to know invoicing and sales receipts. For that, just keep in mind that for invoicing, it's for for sales that are not paid at the time of the sale, and sales receipts are for sales that are paid at the time of the sale. Just something to keep in mind. And in addition, you'll also know how and why to record a customer credit, as well as how and why to create statements. Now, I know I got a little confused about how to handle bounce checks, but you can also find this in the manual. It's a good explanation, but I wouldn't recommend, getting caught up on it. I think I kind of got caught up in it when I was studying, so just for further details, refer to the Day 1 manual. Now, moving on to purchases. So purchases, again, is about 10% of the exam. You should just understand who should be listed in the vendor center. So essentially, that's anyone you pay, whether it's subcontractors, the utility company, landlord, tax agencies, whatever. Whoever you pay is a vendor. Once again, understand how to navigate and use the vendor center. In addition, understand the different workflows for making purchases. So that is, entering and paying bills, writing checks, using a credit card, and using a debit card. In addition, understand how and why to record a vendor credit. And lastly, understand kind of bank reconciliation, so why it's important to do that within QuickBooks. Sure. Okay. So moving on to the next subject, which is payroll. So payroll was one of the subjects I found difficult. It is accounts for about 12% of the exam. And just like this, if this is one of the subjects you find difficult or any of the other subjects, just like I have been recommending, refer to the Day 1 or Day 2 manual. So this is actually in the Day 2 manual, and it's Chapter 5. I think they explain it pretty well of how you need to navigate throughout payroll, and explains some of these objectives within the manual. So essentially what you'll need to know is the differences between the payroll services available from QuickBooks. So that's basic, enhanced, assisted, and direct. In addition, you'll need to know how to set up payroll, just using the setup wizard. So you'll need to know how to set up an employee's earning and sick time, and also how and why to set up payroll schedules. In addition, you'll need to know how to essentially run payroll, so how you can actually pay your employees. And then lastly, how to track time and use it for payroll or invoicing customers. The next subject is reports. So reports was the largest section of the actual exam. So a lot of this, essentially, if you have an accounting background, This will help in the reports part, as well as the next subject, which is basic accounting. But for reports, you'll just need to know how to customize reports, so just making modifications, collapsing sub-accounts, etc. You'll also need to know the basic question that each report answers. So just understanding what the reports are and what they actually mean. Once again, like I said, if you have an accounting background, it'll help with this report section. So also know how and why to process multiple reports. So to do that, you would go to reports and then process multiple reports. Once again, refer to kind of the tabs menu that we've given you in the beginning to help with that. In addition, know how and why to send reports to Excel. So understand the use and the basic and advanced tab. And then lastly, know how to memorize reports. So to add a memorized report group, you select groups, memorize reports, then memorize reports list in that menu. Or you can actually memorize a report within a report. So moving on to the next subject, which is basic accounting. This accounts for 10% of it. If you need to brush up on some of your accounting skills or just want to take a course, there are Skillsoft courses available within Metrics that you can use to kind of brush up on that. So what I would recommend, just searching the catalog within Metrics and search for accounting. You'll find a course on that. So what you'll need to understand is the basic financial statements, what they are, and have just a basic understanding of what they mean. In addition, you'll have to know the difference between cash and accrual reports. So accrual basis accounting recognizes expenses and income in the period that they occurred, regardless of whether payment was actually received. And the cash basis does not recognize items until they've actually been paid or received. So that's just kind of the main difference between those two. In addition, know how and why to set a closing date. So essentially, when you set a closing date, you're closing the books. So you can't make any financial transactions or adjustments after the year has closed. So that kind of leads us on to the next question, is how to enter a journal entry, if actually do so by an accountant, or why you would actually enter a journal entry. So essentially, journal entries are used to adjust errors or making year-end adjustments. So let's say you close the books and you actually need to make an adjustment, or just for entering other transactions that can't be entered in kind of the built-in format. Subject is customization and saving time and shortcuts. So this counts for 12%. And when you're actually using QuickBooks, this customization and shortcuts are probably what you actually use most often. So you'll need to know how to set up multiple users and what level of access they can be granted. In addition, you'll need to know how and why to create custom fields, so whether that's for customers, vendors, or employees. So that concludes the exam. What I'll kind of go on next is what you'll be receiving once you've completed all of your training within 80% hour. So essentially, in order to be eligible for the certification exam and receive your certification exam voucher, you need to complete all of the courses related to this training program within 80% or higher. Upon completion, you'll receive your certificate voucher, and what comes with that is 3 practice tests. These practice tests come from Intuit, so they come from Certiport, so they're the testing company that actually delivers this certification exam. So they're extremely similar to the actual certification exam itself, except the practice are a little easier than what you actually find on the day of the exam. They are optional, but we highly recommend them just to get a feel of what to expect when you actually take the exam. In addition, once you complete all of your training, you'll also get an email from us. And what that will be is we've created an actual quiz for you all to take. It's through QuizStar, which is an online website. And essentially what we have is 2 50 multiple choice questions. So these questions are like what you'll find on the exam. Like I said, the exam is multiple choice and is kind of analytical thinking, so we've kind of replicated that through these quizzes. In addition, we have 2 PDF files that we'll send you with about 100 practice questions. We have one with answers and then one without answers. This is essentially just more practice for you. You probably haven't taken a time test in quite some time, so timing yourself would be something that we recommend when taking this practice questions. Okay. Now with the practice test, like I said, when you receive your certification test voucher, it comes with these 3 practice tests. These practice tests are good for one-time use only, and they're very similar to the actual certification exam itself. So these can be accessed at home, but they require a download or browser lockdown, which we'll send you in an email once you get your actual voucher, and we send you these voucher codes, but we'll have those instructions for you. One caveat is that it cannot be accessed on Macs or with Internet Explorer 11. So that's just one of the features. If you need to access it from work to future, we can make arrangements with that. Just let us know if you don't have access to a home computer or won't be able to access these tests. For testing, like I said, it will occur at the Work to Future Assessment Lab. What will happen is if you're ready to test, or if you're going to be ready to test by the end of the week, we'd recommend testing next Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. However, testings will occur Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So who you'll want to contact is Sunita, and she is the Work to Future Assessment Lab coordinator. What you'll have to do is just contact her via email or via phone. So I would suggest maybe 2 or 3 times available for either that Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, and then she'll let you know a time convenient for her, and you guys can kind of schedule it together. So you'll want to contact her for specific times with that. So kind of keep this up. We'll send this in an email as well so you have that information, but if you want to jot it down quick, you're more than welcome. So let's see, what I'll do now is kind of review the questions that were asked. So if anyone has any questions at this time, just recommend that you type them into the live chat. If you come up with a question, in an hour or 2, or even in the next few days, just let us know. We're more than happy to help, whether it's a content-related question or an actual certification exam question. We'll be happy to assist you. Essentially, let's say you don't pass the exam on the first time, you'll have the voucher that you receive actually comes with a retake. So you're able to take a retake exam within 30 days of that initial exam date. So you'll have a second chance if you do not pass the first time. In addition, you find out right on the spot whether you passed or failed. So it takes a few seconds, but it seems like eternity. And what you'll have is kind of a summary of how you did. So it will give you a breakdown of the different subjects you were tested on, as well as the percentage that you did. But like I said, you need to score 70%, so 35 out of the 50 questions correct. And what I found helpful, just a test-taking tip, is try covering up the answers, or don't look directly at the answers first. Read the questions entirely, try to come up with the answer on your own, and then look at the questions, or the answers to the questions. Because sometimes looking at, A, B, C, and D, you'll confuse yourself. So try to just read the question entirely first and then look at the answers. So Beverly asked a question. Look here. Actually, Beth asked a question as well. How do you find information on changes to QuickBooks 2012 version as to what is asked in QuickBooks 2012 testing? So essentially, the exam will be on 2012. And what I would do is the training, the Mastering QuickBooks Level 1 is based on the 2012 QuickBooks. So if you refer to the manual and look at the different options, you'll be able to kind of get through the test without a problem. I'm not sure if that answered your question. Also referring to payroll. So the different objectives in payroll, someone asked, I didn't refer to 7.5 and 7.6. So that was how and why to use payroll liabilities and how to prepare payroll forms. So I didn't cover those, just going through this kind of webinar, simply because I didn't find a lot of questions on the practice or exam related to these. I did find more questions in the other areas. So these exam objectives, they cover everything that you should know. However, because there are only 50 questions on the test, you might not get asked all of these questions. Each test kind of varies in what type of questions you'll be asked, but if you have a good understanding of all these exam objectives, you should be good to go. What I kind of covered today is what I found helpful in going through kind of this training and through the exam as well. But overall, if you can get through the training, if you can understand these exam objectives, you should do fine on the exam. But I really would highly recommend taking those 3 practice exams, as I found them extremely helpful, and also using those additional resources that will provide once you kind of take all of your training. That just further enhances and helps you prepare for the exam itself. And like I said, if you have questions, if you're kind of feeling lost or don't know what to focus on moving forward, and you don't feel prepared for the exam, let us know. And then, we can help you out in kind of giving you some focus or seeing where you need to focus on. In addition, one last thing that I'll kind of mention is for the 2 assessments, the QuickBooks Pro 2011 and QuickBooks Pro 2012, we've had some people say, I just can't get that 80%. I can't pass these assessments. Do you have any recommendations? What you can do is within metrics, you can go to View My Report, and what will happen is if there's a little bar graph icon, and if you click on that icon, it'll actually give you a breakdown of how you did on that assessment. So it will show you, the different levels of the question, whether it was basic, intermediate, or advanced, as well as the different subjects. So whether it's basic accounting or payroll, it will show you how you did, whether you got the question incorrect or correct, and also the time that you spent on the question. So this will kind of give you, a basis. Okay, well, it looks like, out of the 5 questions I got wrong, half of them were in basic accounting features. So it looks like I need to brush up on my accounting, training. So going through that, it will, that's just one recommendation to kind of gauge where you are and where you need to spend a little more time studying. So like I said, to schedule your exam, just contact Sunita at the Work to Future Assessment Lab. She'll be able to set up a time convenient for both you and her. It's a proctored exam, so really what you need to do is just show up. This is an open book, so you have to, memorize. It's like a test and going back to school. So 50 minutes long, 50 multiple choice questions. Like I said, refer back to the Day 1 and Day 2 manuals because the wording on there is similar to the wording that you'll find in the actual certification exam. Knowing where the tabs are without actually looking at the actual QuickBooks application is probably my best recommendation. So this concludes the webinar for today. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us, but we'll be shooting out an email later this afternoon with this recorded webinar, as well as the 2 review webinars for covering Day 1 and Day 2 of the Mastering QuickBooks Level 1. But best of luck on your exam, and we'll speak to you soon.